is big fun and big business. In 2020 alone, the industry brought in some $160 billion and added millions of new players around the globe who are stuck at home during the pandemic. In this week's Business of Entertainment, we check in with an award-winning advocate in the gaming world who's looking to broaden accessibility to everyone, including the blind. Brandon Cole is an accessibility consultant for Aquent Games. Brandon, welcome to Quicktake. Briefly explain to us what exactly you do and how you got here.
How I got here is a long story, but what I do is I consult on video games. I work in the video game industry and have done so for several years now, regularly since about 2017, 2018 or so. And I work directly with game developers to first convince them to sell them on the idea, and then to help them make their games fully accessible, even to the totally blind. My biggest current career highlight is the fact that I worked on a very popular game called The Last of Us Part 2 for 3 years to make that game fully accessible even to the totally blind.
And we'll get to how you do that in a moment, but I have to confess that I was surprised that visually impaired people do play video games. And it might be because I'm lame and I only play puzzle type games, so I don't know how you could do that with actually seeing the pieces fall. So talk about what kinds of games, what genre of games can be made more accessible.
Well, the thing is, I'm ever the optimist. So if you ask me that question, my answer will always be anything. I fully believe that if given the developers' willingness to try, given their time, and yes, given their work, we can make any genre accessible. In fact, that is how I make my goals. That's how my career goals are set. My career goals are genre-based. I say to myself, okay, with The Last of Us 2, I gave people an action-adventure title. I want to give people a huge role-playing game. I want to give people a puzzle game. I want to give people, a shooter that they can play. That's how I set my career goals.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is the answer.
Okay, then how exactly do you design games for those who are visually impaired? What is the key guiding principle here?
There are a few key things that is going to apply to every game, but I think the biggest ones are probably things like UI narration, for one thing, meaning every text element in the game needs to be accessible to the blind via either text-to-speech narration or via human voice narration. Either way, the blind need to know anything that's in text, whether that's the menu of the game, whether that's a note you pick up off the ground, whether that's a journal, a dusty journal you pull from a bookshelf and read. All that needs to be accessible to the blind. And then another key component is audio cues. Games that require you to move around a bit and to navigate an area and to find things, to pick things up and to interact with things. Since we can't see those things, audio cues are how we find them, how we locate the different objects in the game world and interact. And then in some cases, where games have huge, open, giant, monstrous worlds, we need something like navigational assistance, which helps us traverse those areas that we still can't see. With all the information that these things are giving us, we still can't see the environment. So a little bit of help of traversal, combined with all these other things together, it's a subset of features that you add to a game to make it accessible.
This is blowing my mind. It's so fascinating. Tell me a little bit about the size of the gaming audience that needs some kind of accommodation or accessibility feature.
The size is large. It's larger than anyone thinks. That's the thing. Disability, the people with disabilities in the world is a number that is constantly growing. Billions of people already have disabilities, actual millions. And that's not small in the gaming market. That's not a small number. Developers, the developers that aren't interested in accessibility might tell you that there's not a big enough market, but I promise you there is. And the thing is, if you make a game accessible, you're also future-proofing it.
Yes.
Because more people are becoming disabled all the time. Old age tends to add disabilities to people. Even whether they're visible or invisible disabilities, maybe you can't see as well as you used to.
That's a really good point. I mean, all these Gen Xers who are going to get into their 60s and 70s, they're going to want to continue playing video games. Talk a little bit about the future here with the metaverse, with VR, with AR. What are the opportunities that arise because of that?
It's even that, actually, it's more than you might think. There's tremendous potential, even for the totally blind with VR. I actually wrote an article about this a long time ago. And I had a VR experience where I successfully played a virtual reality shooting game simply because the 3D audio in the game, the 3D sound effects used in the virtual reality were so good that I could actually locate my targets with sound alone.
Oh, interesting.
And I was able to successfully play the game. It's tremendous. VR actually has potential. Even AR has potential, especially in the days where you're coming to a point where you can aim a camera at something and it turns into a thing in a game world.
Mm-hmm.
And there are already augmented reality apps for the visually impaired and the blind as well.
Right.
So AR definitely has a place as well. We can already use AR to identify things.
Right.
In our environment. So it's all there. The future is bright in the world of accessibility and gaming.
The future is bright. It's all about making sure people are aware of it. So there's the marketing of games to consider. Brandon, I got to leave it there, but really, thank you so much for joining us to talk about accessibility in gaming. Brandon Cole, really on the cutting edge here of the video game industry. Appreciate it.